Welcome to the City of York Council licensing hearing. The first item on the agenda is the appointment of the chair, and I understand that members would like to elect Councillor Mason to chair the hearing. Is that correct, members?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll hand over now.
Thank you, Fiona. Welcome everyone to this afternoon's licensing hearing. The meeting has been recorded, as well as it being live now for us. It'll be recorded and available on the council's YouTube channel. So I'll go through some introductions. So I'm Councillor Mason. I'll be chairing the hearing, and just for the benefit of people that don't know me well, the applicant, etc. My eyesight's very poor, so obviously during the hearing it's a process where we come to people in turn. But I am trying to do this on an iPad, so if you think I'm ignoring you, don't bother kind of putting your hand up. Just kind of keep waving until I say, and if I don't hear you or don't see you, just step in and make yourselves known. I've got two of the members with me today, Councillor Cuthbertson and Councillor Galvin. I'll let the officers introduce themselves. So Fiona, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Fiona Young, Democratic Services. I'm clerking the hearing.
Sandra.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Sandra Brannigan. I'm a senior solicitor at the council and I'm the legal advisor to this hearing. And just to mention, Chair, if I may, that my colleague Lucy Waller in Legal Services is present in this meeting. She is here simply shadowing me, as it were. She is not participating, but just to mention that's the name on the screen there.
Thank you. And Leslie?
Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Leslie Cook and I'm the licensing manager for the council.
Thank you. Okay, now to the applicant. I don't know if there's still you want to introduce your team or your party.
I'll do the introductions, Councillor Mason. Thank you. My name's Piers Warren from TLT Solicitors and I represent To Bridge Cafe Limited, and Jamie Hawksworth is with me, who is a director of the company and the applicant. So I'll be making submissions and he's here to answer any questions you may have when the time comes.
Super, thank you. And PC Hollis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's Kim Hollis. I'm the Police Licensing Officer for North Yorkshire Police for the City of York.
So hopefully everyone knows everyone. It's a very small list of people we've got with us today, so it should be quite easy. Going forward, declarations of interest. Either member got anything to declare?
No, Chair.
No. Fantastic. Okay, so we just need to move to item 4 and exclude the press and public. So when we come to making our decision, that is always done in private, whether it be an in-person hearing or a virtual hearing. So can I have members' agreement that we can make that decision in private?
Agreed, Chair.
Brilliant. And also we've got some minutes to approve. So minutes of the last meeting on the 25th of August. Anybody got any corrections to those? They're happy for me to approve them? Brilliant. That's fine. I shall sign those off virtually. So now we go on towards the this particular application. Like I said, it's a very kind of stage managed process. So to start with, it will be Leslie who will present the application. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Chair. This is the application for the grant of a premise licence for the Fox and the Tiger, 32 Stonegate, York. I'm sure everybody's aware of this premises. It was previously the Cath Kitson shop on Stonegate. The licensable activities are applied for are late night refreshment, Monday to Sunday from 11 p.m. until midnight. The sale of alcohol on and off the premises. There was actually an error in the report. It is on and off the premises from Monday to Sunday, 8 a.m. until midnight, and opening hours Monday to Sunday, 8 a.m. until midnight 30, with non-standard timings on New Year's Eve. Following negotiations with the Public Protection Officer, the applicant has removed the requirement for recorded music as a licensable activity. A full copy of the application and the plan of the premises can be found at Annex 1 of the report. The premises is described within the application as a bar with a food offer. An overview of the circumstances in which entertainment activities are not licensable can be found at Annex 2. As part of the application, the operating schedule submitted by the applicant showing how the licensing objectives would be met can be found at paragraphs 10 to 15 on pages 20 to 23 of the report. I can confirm that the premises is located within the cumulative impact assessment area and that the assessment can be found at Annex 3. Section 9 of the Statement of Licensing Policy, which deals with cumulative impact, can be found at Annex 4. This premises is not located within the red or amber zones of the assessment area. An amendment to Annex 4 of the cumulative impact will be circulated by Fiona. I'm not sure if Fiona's already done that, but there was a couple of paragraphs of the policy that were missing from the assessment. I can confirm that that the consultation regarding this application was carried out correctly. North Yorkshire Police have made representation with regards to the prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance and protection of children and from harm objectives, and their representation can be found at Annex 5. There are no other relevant representations before you today. A map showing the general area around the premises can be found at Annex 6. Members have the following options when making your decision. Grant the licence in the terms applied for, grant the licence with modified or additional conditions imposed by the licensing committee, grant the licence to exclude any of the licensable activities to which the application relates and modify, add conditions accordingly, or reject the application. Since the agenda was published, an agenda supplement has been published with additional information submitted by North Yorkshire Police, and further information submitted by the applicant has also been circulated. That's a brief overview of the report, Chair.
Thank you, Leslie. Any questions, Mr. Warren, of the licensing officer? PC Hollis, any questions?
None from me, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Cuthbertson?
No, thank you.
No, thanks, John. Just one from me, Leslie. I'm not sure if this is the right time or not, but I just wanted to pick it up. There's reference in PC Hollis's submission about a council policy on Challenge 25 being the kind of de facto council option. I just wondered whereabouts what document that was contained in.
Chair, if I may, while Leslie's looking puzzled, I think that's probably my miswording in the first in the first issue. That's an agreement that's generally made that is not actually documented in the policy. The policy, I believe, just states that there has to be an age verification. I can see Piers is nodding his head there. Yeah, that's the wording of it, I think. So that's probably my error.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a legal requirement, Councillor Mason, that there has to be an age challenge policy for any premises that authorise the sale of alcohol.
Brilliant. Right, Mr. Warren, it's your chance for your applicant to set out your stall, and obviously you know what the issues of dispute are here to focus on. You've got 15 minutes, which you're entitled to use up. And then after that point will be 5 minutes for the police to ask questions and members to ask questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason, and thank you everyone for your time today. I'm sorry I look a bit washed out, but the sun shines right through the window here and there's nothing I can do about it. So just bear with me, I'm afraid. Leslie set out the details of the application, so there's no need for me to go over that in any great depth. It is as she has said. Hopefully you've seen my submission document that I provided to all parties. I know I've spoken to Kim and she's seen it. It consists of pages of submissions, a copy of a case that I will quickly refer to, and then just the two maps showing the cumulative impact zone. Now, in the original report, and this is no adverse comment on any officers, I wasn't quite clear in the report whether it was saying that the premises was within the red or amber zones, but that's been clarified by Leslie. As you'll see from the map, the premises sits within cumulative impact, but not red or amber, which obviously has a significant part to play when it comes to talking about cumulative impact, which I will address. The application, as you've heard now, really is for alcohol, late night refreshment after 11 o'clock to midnight, and then a number of conditions, 27 conditions, 20 conditions and 7 which relate to CCTV. So let's call it 21 individual conditions, which is quite a substantial operating schedule as part of the application. We have worked with Kim to see if we could come to agreement on her 2 conditions, and as is the way, sometimes one can't get to an agreement. So part of the reason we're here, obviously, is to put our own 2 versions of those 2 conditions to you. The original condition that was offered, the first one that Kim had concerns about, was the condition relating to substantial food and how that looked within the application. You'll find that in your papers at various points. Actually, it's referred to in the report, and then also there's the application as well, which has it, which at page 43, you'll see condition 2 under prevention of crime disorder says substantial food, non-intoxicating beverages, including drinking water, shall be available in all parts of the premises where alcohol is sold or supplied for consumption on the premises, up to 3 hours before the end of permitted hours for the sale of alcohol. And then it says, for the avoidance of doubt, a full menu shall be available up to 3 hours before the end of permitted hours on any given day. So that was what we offered in the application. So there is, if you like, an offer of substantial food throughout the majority of the trading day. I'll come on to why we've phrased it that way. The truth is, since that application was submitted 2 months ago, Jamie's been reflecting on the costings of running premises. As you know, costs of doing business are going up exponentially, and I'll come on to that in a second. We did offer to Kim a variation on this condition, which absolutely quite rightly she said she didn't think it went far enough, but I want to put this forward to you as a committee as well as an option, because we think actually this would work better and set ours in stone. The condition we offered in an email, I think it was on the 10th of October, said as a minimum, substantial food and non-intoxicating beverages, including drinking water, shall be available in all parts of the premises where alcohol is sold or supplied for consumption on the premises between midday and 2100 hours each day. Now, it's right that we didn't have the midday part in the application beforehand. We were just saying 3 hours after the end, but giving a start time and an end time is a definitive time for hours of serving substantial food, which means actually if they were to close early during the week, you'd still have to serve food up to 9 p.m, whereas under the 3 hours that we've asked for, obviously if you were to close, let's say 10 o'clock on a Monday or Tuesday night, you could stop serving food at 7. So that might give a bit more rigidity and solidity. And in fact, as I say, Jamie and I have been discussing this in terms of actually the way you manage kitchen staff and shifts and things like that, that actually would really assist the premises. So I'm offering that as an alternative to this committee, albeit I fully accept that it's in your gift as to whether you want to give it consideration or not. Effectively, that is to maximize the efficiency of the kitchen. As you know, fuel costs have been rising, and the estimates here, based on the fact that Jamie operates 3 premises in town already, 2 of which have substantial food offers. 4 premises in town, 2 have substantial food offers. He expects fuel costs to go up from about £55,000 to well over £100,000 as things currently stand. So there's a huge rise in costs there. Staffing, frankly, there just isn't the staff that there used to be around, and that's proving to be difficult. Cost and supply of goods and cost of living are all going to affect the ability of premises to operate. And indeed, we've seen that in the numbers. And in my summary, I did put forward some of the figures that have been put out by Ernst & Young, so by a significant player in economics. 64%, the figure of number of restaurants, that have gone insolvent in the year up to May 2022 went up 64% from the previous year, 56% in other hospitality venues. So we're seeing a dramatic rise already in insolvency. And quite simply, that is to do with the effects of COVID. Everyone's come off the back of getting the grants and the other support that the government put in place, but that is now coming away. So all the rent rebates and all rent reliefs are falling away as well. I work with we've got a restructuring team at our office, so I work very closely with them, and I'm afraid all the predictions are, come January in particular, premises are really going to struggle. So all the support's gone away. We get over Christmas and New Year, quarterly rent and rates, etc., become payable, and it's going to be very difficult. But Jamie is an exemplary operator in town. He's prepared to invest over £700,000 in this building, which has stood empty for 2.5 years. He's looking to create 15 full-time jobs, 6 part-time jobs at the premises. And as I've said already, he operates 4 premises in York. The first opened, actually, Jamie, I hope this doesn't age you too badly, but 15 years ago, Pivney, which is also in the cumulative impact. Pavement Vaults and Market Cat are also in cumulative impact. So he's a very, very good operator of premises in York city centre. The other premises is the York Tap, which I'm sure you all know from train stations, and is my first port of call when I have the pleasure of coming up to York for a good pint after a long train journey. So I think it's fair to say that there's been no issues, no allegations of crime and disorder associated with his operations in town. He operates Challenge 21 successfully in his other businesses, and there's no evidence really to support the need for a Challenge 25 policy. Now, I understand Kim's position and fully appreciate that that's her preferred model. But in real terms, what we're saying here as well, Jamie operates 21, he operates it very well. His staff know it, his management know it. They're all over that. Keeping it the same actually is a benefit for training purposes, but also there is no evidence or no reason to request something higher than that in the circumstances. You'll also see other conditions, and Leslie referred to the pages you refer to for the other conditions that have been offered, page 43 and 44 of the report. They include conditions on a minimum seating number, so 210 seats for a maximum capacity of around 250, or the maximum capacity set at 250. Now, remember, premises very rarely get to that capacity figure, especially when there's significant amounts of seating, but it does give you the nature of the operation. It indicates the kind of operation that's being looked at, which is mainly seated, with a few people wanting to stand when they can. But this is a very grown-up offer, like the Market Cat, if you know it. We want customers to act like grown-ups. We want them to be able to, they want to stand and have a chat and a drink, well, good for them. But there'll be plenty of seats for everyone. Most people would like to be seated. It is a reasonably expensive craft drink offer. Substantial food offer is there in the condition, and his premises are always very beautiful settings and a pleasure to go to. The police have mentioned the 2 conditions. Obviously, I've dealt with both of those now, but also they mentioned cumulative impact, so it's only right that I mention cumulative impact. I've dealt with it substantially in my submission, so I won't go over everything in there, just pick out on a couple of points. We were close to agreement, but actually just felt the police proposals went a bit too far in the circumstances here, and don't really take into account operational realities, such as the cost of running a kitchen, which are very high anyway. Ideal shift patterns actually work around the midday to 9 p.m. Slots for kitchens. Hence the suggestion that we've made to amend that. The policy, I don't think, is also taken into account really as well in terms of the red or amber zones. You'll see that in pages 9 and 10 of my submissions document. What I've got to say really there is that there has to be a graded approach. Red, pretty much nothing granted. Amber, when you look at the paragraph that it relates to, I think it's paragraph 15 underneath it, that says substantial food offers. That's where you get the restaurant conditions. We're offering a hybrid, which we suggest, with substantial food at main or key trading times where people will want food, with a bit of leeway for people to stay and drink afterwards, is actually perfectly appropriate for the cumulative impact zone and area we're in. And I've quoted, obviously, in my document, the Brewdog case, which I'm sure you will have heard of in this committee. If you do cumulative impact hearings, it does get quoted a lot, but it's very useful as a means of abstracting the principles on cumulative impact. Those I've set out, as I say, in paragraph 18. I won't quote everything there, but the principle is very simply that the judge in that case, if he accepted as he did that you serve expensive drinks, you're not driving your business towards a get them down your neck kind of offer, then there is no reason to suspect that even the increased footfall itself will affect cumulative impact. He says just simply having more people is not necessarily an undermining of cumulative impact, because it's about the way they operate and how they treat themselves. And he says, I accept that the committee and the police did their best, but their application of the policy was too rigid. They seem to take the view that man was made for policy when policy should be made for man. Now, I wish I could come up with quotes like that when I was doing these hearings, but he's a judge and I'm not. And it's a very salient point to be made here. So what we have here is an application for a hybrid premises. And if you think about it in real terms, restaurants with restaurant conditions, so conditions that force you to have food at all times, they cannot flex when things get tough. They cannot just open and serve alcohol at periods. They cannot have customers remain behind with alcohol because the conditions prevent it. Pubs, on the other hand, were able to turn from wet leg to gastropubs without changing a single condition on their license. So ate into, if you like, the restaurant trade without having to do anything to do so. And the distinction, I think it's fair to say, between restaurants and pubs has been dimming for years. You know, as I say, gastropubs, I think Root has just been voted top pub or top food venue in the country. Now, the operator there, I know, in the Northeast has a number of pub operations. But a lot of the distinction is falling away, and pubs are food-led and restaurants have drink offers, and you know that distinction I don't think holds anymore. But this hybrid offer does actually help, if you think about it, promote the licensing objectives in the following ways. More customers are likely to come out, have something to eat, and have a few drinks at Jamie's premises, and then go straight home, rather than go elsewhere. And if they are not going elsewhere, then that's less footfall on the street, fewer people traveling across town to go to other venues. They're there, they then go home. And that in and of itself would lead to an overall reduction in cumulative impact. So the benefit, if you like, of this application as it is, aside from the economics of it, which you are entitled to take into account, the guidance makes that very clear, is we say that this application in this location for a building that stood empty will promote the objectives, follows your policy, and can be granted as we applied for. But I would again just say, please give some thought as to whether you'd be happy to amend the condition on substantial food to be between the hours of midday and 9 p.m. each day, which would really help Jamie in terms of managing staffing and kitchen costs, which are going to be a major headache for all premises going forward. So those are our submissions. I think I've kept within the 15 minutes. Councillor Mason, delighted to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. PC Hollis, you've got 5 minutes. Is there anything you'd like to ask?
No, there's nothing actually from me, Chair, at this point. Thank you. I shall deal with it in my submission.
Okay. Councillor Cuthbertson.
No, I don't think so. Curious to know if the applicant has got any, how can I put it, document measurements accumulated over time as to the age profile of his customers. The point's well made in the written work, but I'm asking if there's any supporting evidence.
Jamie, I'll let you deal with that.
Okay, yeah. You know, I've traded sites in York for 15 years, seen some significant changes across the city in that time. I've also aware of the demographic that comes to York, having captured them at the train station and seen them travel across town. And one of my more recent sites, well, recent 7 years ago, was down on Piccadilly, which is an area where people didn't really go. And now we've got the whole demographic moving across town.
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you that my customer base is probably somewhere, apologies for the dogs, it was about, I'd say 23 and upwards. We don't get students, we don't get hen parties. They don't come to us at the station. With the food, the drink we offer there is all man craft ale, some people may call it. We don't sell shooters, we don't offer drinks promotions. The whiskies we sell and spirits are high-end spirits. Wine accounts to 15% of my drink sales, where I think if you're looking across York, speaking to other operators, I think if they achieve 5%, we're surprised. So don't set out to attract the lowest common denominator. Also, it's worth adding here as well, that our drinks prices aren't cheap, and we go for quality and lower quantities rather than high volume. So that kind of keeps people away. And I'm just add to this point that one of my main concerns is the post 9 p.m. crowd of diners. Questions has to be had as where have they been till 9 p.m. Now in the city where I have friends who trade, they have issues because the city traders and others such like don't finish shifts till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So most of the restaurants you see in London and such like, and even one of my bars in Birmingham, is because the city crowds. We don't have that in York. So why haven't you eaten at 9 p.m? Where have you been? And I'm guessing you can all guess that they've been enjoying the drinks in the city. Do I really want those people in my venue dining? No, probably not. No. Eat in a restaurant, come earlier, have your food earlier, and enjoy the evening. I personally can't think the last time I was in town on a Sunday night, say after 9 p.m. eating. And I can see this already at Pavement Vaults. I have a fully paid team of kitchen porters and staff and chefs, and they're idle from 9 p.m. onwards. But yet I have to keep them going just to satisfy the licensing. I can choose to ignore it, obviously, and get away with it, but I don't want to. It's what our license states, so we do it because we don't want to risk anything. So in this instance, I just think it needs reviewing, particularly when energy prices, like Piers, not to reiterate what he said, are going through the roof. Just to have a kitchen stood idle for 2 hours is just foolhardy.
Yep. Understand the point you make. Thank you very much. Very eloquent.
Thank you. Councillor Galvin? You're on mute.
Yes. No, I think Mr. Hawkes has covered the issues very, very well, actually, because it is basically a single issue, for want of a better phrase. So I'm quite happy that my questions have been answered.
Thank you. One or two. In terms of saying 9 o'clock, is that that's it? The kitchen's closed at 9 o'clock, or if I come in at 5 to 9, can I still order a substantial meal?
What's the? Yes, of course you can.
So it's last orders 9 o'clock, basically, opposed to kitchen kind of shutting down at 9 o'clock.
No, and I think this is something else that perhaps Piers and I should have mentioned earlier, is that we're just setting up minimum requirements. I'm here to have a profitable, busy bar and busy business. If the demand on the shows that on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I've got a busy restaurant, I've got orders coming in, then it'll be amended and it'll be extended within the.
I accept that, but if we put a condition on it, we've got to think of how it's worded and what that actually is in operation.
Food will be available with orders.
Okay, last orders would be the minimum last order would be 9 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to prejudge where we get to with the police and listening to them, but obviously some of the things you've been talking about refer to kind of number of seats and things like that. Would you be open to any form of condition, if it were to be thought appropriate, that would kind of designate so much of the premise could be used when your kitchen's open and so much that couldn't? Let's say you close at 9 o'clock and
the entire seated premises. There's no distinguish between a restaurant area or a drinking area. It's a combined trading venue.
Okay. So it would be hard for us to say you lost a third of your capacity when the restaurant wasn't in use or the kitchen wasn't open.
Oh, you'd like an allocation?
I think I was just going to say it does from an enforcement point of view. That would be incredibly difficult for an officer to walk in and try and deal with, and that obviously has to be part of the test that's set out in the guidance, that they're clear and enforceable. And I think we've gone down that road before, not necessarily here, but in other applications, and I can tell you from experience, it's tripped up many an officer and many a applicant without actually meaning to.
Okay. Well, that's everything from me. PC Hollis, go on. Sorry,
Sandra. Chair, it's Sandra here. May I just make a point in relation to the submission that has been made by Mr. Warne. I think, Mr. Warne, you said that paragraph 915 of the Council Special Policy only applies to the amber zone. That is not my reading of the policy. It doesn't say that, and I don't think that's licensing officers' understanding of the policy. I just thought I wanted to flag that up because paragraph 915 may obviously well be relevant, but I respectfully point out that I think that was you've misunderstood the policy.
Mr. Warner, the observation?
Yes, if I may, and if I have misapprehended it, it's a genuine misapprehension of the wording as a lawyer rather than an attempt to suggest anything other. But I think that when I read it, the way I read it was obviously red zones are almost you have to really go some to get a license in there. Amber zones then refer to the paragraph below, which is tied up with the paragraph on cumulative impact. But what the paragraph on amber zones actually says is refer to that paragraph for amber zones, which then leads me to the point that I make in my submissions that there must be something less than that relating to cumulative impact if that's the test for amber zones. So I completely understand why the policy has done it that way, but as a lawyer, that's the logic I followed to come to my conclusion. In any event, all the points I've made, I think, stand. And I'm very happy that your legal counsel has brought that up. And again, if there's any disagreement about that, I'm happy to defer to what you mean by your own policy. I mean, that's for you to state.
Thank you. PC Hollis, your time now to give us your 15 minutes of representations, and then obviously chance for the applicant and ourselves to ask you any questions.
Thank you, Chair. I'll come on to that point as well in a moment, if I will, and my interpretation of that. But good afternoon to everybody, Chair, members of the subcommittee. As I've already introduced myself, I'm Kim Hollis, so I'm the Police Licensing Officer for York. I know that you've had sight of the representations made on behalf of North Yorkshire Police and the additional information that's been provided to you, which does show all the communication I have had with the solicitor for the applicant during this application process. This is an application for a bar with a food offering within the City of York's cumulative impact area. As you will be aware, the cumulative impact area is an area which is the full council at City of York is identified as being under stress and strain from crime and disorder and public nuisance in your own statement of licensing policy, which is 2022 to 2027. It does state the following in 9.11. The published assessment relates to an area within York City Centre. This has been identified because evidence shows that the cumulative impact of the number of concentration of licensed premises in this area continues to adversely affect residents, visitors and other businesses, and therefore adversely affects the promotion of the licensing objectives, being the prevention of crime and disorder and public nuisance. It goes on to say that North Yorkshire Police and Public Protection have provided information that the nature of this area is such that the problems and cumulative impact directly relates to the style of business operating in that area and their clientele, due to the concentration of pubs, bars, nightclubs, restaurants, cafes, hotels, late night refreshment premises, takeaways and off-licence premises, especially in the nighttime economy and especially at weekends. That's through the day and the night of that nighttime economy. I make reference here to point 9.15, which the policy, to my understanding, does state that we go through the red, we go through the amber at 9.14, and then 9.15 does state that applicants for the grant or variation of a premises licence in the cumulative impact area may be considered more favourably if the applicant can demonstrate through the operating schedule that the premises is going to be predominantly food-led, with alcohol being sold or supplied ancillary to a meal, with substantial food being served throughout the duration of the operating hours, no vertical drinking and all customers seated at tables, a set number of table covers, table service only, no customers at the bar, and no drinks promotions unless they're in line with the food promotion. And North Yorkshire Police have reviewed this application, which is to add a new licensed venue to a premises which, as we know, was a former retail unit within that special policy area. Contact's been made with the solicitor, as Piers has made reference to, and I've detailed it in the additional material that I've submitted in order to look to agree some minor changes to the conditions offered. The conditions on the application are very much welcomed by North Yorkshire Police, but these conditions have been carefully considered, and the amendments that I make, I believe, are proportionate and relevant to this licence. By adding these amendments, it does ensure that the premises operates as a predominantly food-led business with a robust operating schedule, as the policy asks us to consider. As documented by the solicitor for the applicant in the submitted summary, the operators have a history of running licensed venues. The applicant's solicitor has also outlined the financial challenges facing businesses currently. However, if the committee are minded to grant this premises licence, and any conditions set will endure despite the shift in economic climates or landscapes, and the evolving management of staffing for the venue. For this reason, it's believed that North Yorkshire Police, that clear regard is paid to the licence objectives and the cumulative impact policy, and we seek to uphold that. The policy is due to the density of the licensed venues within the city and is particularly relevant in this case where a former retail premises is now undergoing a conversion into a licensed premises. I would like to point out that in considering this application, taking on board all the factors that have been mentioned by the applicant, including the fact that the premises doesn't sit within the red or amber zone of the cumulative impact policy, North Yorkshire Police have not asked for conditions relating to the sale of alcohol being ancillary to a meal, or set out a table covers number or waiter or waitress service, but rather just asked that consideration be given to two minor amendments to the operating schedule already offered in order to be flexible to the needs of the operator themselves, while ensuring that we do not add further impact felt by the police and local authority in the city. In that, North Yorkshire Police recommend the adding of the wording, the premises shall operate as a predominantly food-led establishment, to the offered condition number 2, which you'll have seen in the documents, with a further hour added to the menu to ensure that the premises is remaining as that food-led and that a menu is available, which of course doesn't mean that people have to always eat, but that menu is there and available. That still does offer the applicant 2.5 hours at the end of the day to be able to serve customers within the premises, or 2 hours to serve and a half hour for the drinking up time, I suppose. The licence, if granted with the conditions offered by the applicant or the new condition put forward, it could operate as a drink-led venue with food not having to be served to customers, but rather a menu just being available. Further, the other recommendation that the applicants put forward with regards to the Challenge 21 policy, it's considered by North Yorkshire Police that the more robust policy would be the Challenge 25. I appreciate, again, this may be a minor point to some, but this premises does sit within that area which the City of York Council has identified as being under the most stress and strain. So I reiterate that it's my belief as the licensing officer for North Yorkshire Police for this area that it does offer a greater or more robust protection. If in fact we have a discerning customer that is an older customer, this won't even come into play. But if we have got people who look to be under the age of 25, it just offers a more robust condition. This condition is considered by North Yorkshire Police to be best practice, and in my experience, when mediated as part of an application process, has always been welcomed by responsible operators. The applicant has not wished to agree the proposed conditions, which I fully understand, and further has only come back with a slight amendment to condition 2, which I know Piers has already spoken on, which actually reduces the food offering from that original condition on their application. So at first they said that substantial food, non-intoxicating beverages, including drinking water, should be available in all parts of the premises up to 3 hours before the end. A reminder that they're asking for alcohol to be served from 0800 hours in the morning until midnight. The new condition that's put forward says that they only have to serve food from midday until 2100 hours, which does take the offer down further. Obviously, North Yorkshire Police didn't feel that would be an acceptable agreement, as the purpose of the representation was to ensure that the premises remained food-led. and not reduce the time that food was available, but in fact look to increase it. I'd just like to reiterate as well section 9.9 and 9.10 from the Statement of Licensing Policy, which states that the applicants for a new premises licence or variation for a premises situated within the cumulative impact area that are likely to add to the impact already experienced will normally be refused if relevant representations are received. The applicant must demonstrate through the operating schedule the steps that they intend to take so that the council and responsible authorities can be satisfied that granting a new or varied licence will not add to the cumulative impact already being experienced. And the onus is on the applicant to demonstrate to responsible authorities the suitability of how their proposal will not add to the cumulative impact. To assist the process, the council recommends early consultation with responsible authorities, and this can be done directly with those authorities through the council's licensing section. I refer you back to my additional submissions, which are my only communications in this particular case. And as I say, the only condition that's been put forward to mediate with myself is the one of an offer of a less time of food being available. Taking all that into consideration, I would ask members of the subcommittee, again, North Yorkshire Police do not look to object outright to the granting of licence for this venue, nor do they ask for unreasonable conditions to be placed on the applicant, but rather ask that consideration is being given to the recommendations made by North Yorkshire Police to ensure the premises does operate as a predominantly food-led venue with a robust operating schedule, in hope that this doesn't further add to the crime and disorder and public nuisance felt in the area. And I'll invite any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, PC Hollis. Any questions on behalf of the applicant or any questions?
No questions from me, Chair. Thank you, Kim. I thought that was very, very well put forward, actually.
Thank you.
Councillor Cuthbertson?
No questions, I think. I guess that it's probably an awkward argument to make to add such a condition in an area where cumulative impact is not quite applicable in the terms of the red and amber zones. Have you got anything?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. To clarify, so the red and amber zones, the cumulative impact in this area is felt due to the density of premises within that entire area. The red and the amber relate to numbers of incidents occurring in those particular areas. So, of course, because this premises has not yet to exist in that area, we can't know how many incidents will be created as a result of another wet-led or drink-led premises within that area. So I take the point that it's not within those areas, but it is clear for me in the policy in 9.15 that applies to premises being predominantly food-led within the entire of the cumulative impact area, as Sandra clarified for us earlier.
I thought that's what you might be saying. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Councillor Calvin?
Yes, please, I don't ask this question to try and catch you out, but would it be fair to say that the police, it's not in their role when making these kind of decisions to take into account the financial consequences of any such condition? So what I'm really saying is, and again, don't take it the wrong way, the fact that the or any applicant is profitable or not is not a consideration of the police. Is that a fair comment?
I think that's very fair, Councillor Galvin.
Thank
yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the police are here to deal with the crime and disorder aspect and the impact for the community rather than financial loss or gain. So I do take that point. Yes.
Yes. It wasn't being done in any aggressive form. I just
No, it's fine.
clear that in here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra might have an observation on that. I don't know, but I suppose we're all here to consider the 4 licensing objectives as we work through this. A few things from me, PC Hollis. In terms of the challenge 21, challenge 25, I just wondered why that was never put on their other licenses. I mean, Market Cat's quite new. I wonder if you had any insight to why at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
The decision was made or it wasn't objected to.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think basically, obviously, now we're looking at things are forever changing within the policy area and within our understanding of things. Different policies do change. These are often very transient and they do move. At the time when the market cap was applied for, actually, I did have some hand in that, and it was considered at the time that Challenge 21 was quite acceptable for the city centre. Since then, any new applications, to be truthful, that come in for the city centre, we look to be a little bit more robust because we do have quite a young demographic, obviously, that comes into York City Centre. And so it's really just considered to be a little bit more robust. It just offers a little bit more protection. And so anything moving forward, we would always look for that to be done.
Go on, Councillor Cuthbertson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to pick up that point and ask if PC Hollis would argue that Challenge 25 was the more appropriate challenge to institute here instead of Challenge 21.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, I do. That's how I feel about it. I mean, that's my professional opinion from dealing with licensed premises over the last 4 or 5 years in this role, is that Challenge 25 is what we consider to be the most robust, the most appropriate, because by definition, you're asking somebody to account for their age a little bit older than a Challenge 21. So of course, it leaves less room for error when it comes to those verification checks, making sure that people are of an appropriate age to be in those licensed venues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This might sound like a bit like what Councillor Gallagher was saying about a kind of trick question, but I suppose you haven't asked for it to be conditioned, as in, you know, you've got to have a meal to have a drink. What if you? But obviously, you're realising there's some form of balance there to kind of strike. What describe to me if you walked into this perfect food-led pub, or food-led, maybe pub's the wrong word, but food-led establishment that wasn't conditioned that it had to be always with a meal. What do you see that balance looking like? Yeah,
I think that's a good point to make, really, is that as I've said, I'm not asking, I appreciate what the policy from York Council does say, that it should be food-led, alcohol should be ancillary, that no vertical drinking at all, and this kind of thing. And I do fully appreciate that there are challenges for operators, and I work with operators regularly. So I don't try and ask for conditions that are going to really cause lots of issues for operators, but rather meet that balance. I don't go in asking for 10 or 12 conditions that I don't feel are appropriate, hoping someone will meet me halfway. I just try and be reasonable in the first place in what I put forward. So those minor changes really are what I see as a minimum to kind of get us knowing that, as has been alluded to, we've got a responsible operator, we're out of that red zone area. These are the sort of minimum things that I would hope for to ensure that it remains as a nice balance between the two things. I appreciate that perhaps what a police officer looks for in the way of a licensed premises and their ideal might be a little bit different perhaps than as a customer what you might be looking for. But I do try and make a balance somewhere in the middle. So I do feel that ensuring that it has a predominantly food-led, it doesn't mean everything has to be food, it doesn't mean every customer has to be eating, but so long as we keep within that vein and just have a few hours of the just drinking time, I think that makes a nice compromise.
I think that's everything from me. The curiosity of this process now means that PC Hollis can speak again. So whether you want to or not, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've probably gone on enough, haven't I? I think, you know, I would just reiterate, North Yorkshire Police are not looking to object outright to this application. We're not looking that there is no granting of a licence at this premises. We're not looking to overly impose conditions, overly onerous conditions on the applicant. I don't think help anybody. Rather, just for the committee to take consideration that we are coming to you to say that without these minor changes to conditions, we don't feel that it will be robust enough within that special policy area. And just refer you back to the City of York Council's own policy, which is what I'm working towards. And of course, there are no conditions on a licence that says that a type of client has to be a certain discerning client or a certain age of a client. Anybody can go into a licensed premises. It's for a management to kind of manage that. And for us as operators, as responsible authorities, without good conditions in place, it does make life a little more difficult if we encounter those problems. And so by having those things in place in the granting of a license, it helps in the long term, I think, with the impact that's felt in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Warren, you have 5 minutes to kind of sum up for the applicant based on everything you've heard, and then after that there will be a final chance for members to ask any last clarification questions.
Of course, thank you, Chair. And I've sort of been scribbling madly to try and pick up on the points that have been raised in questions with Kim. So if this is a little piecemeal, please bear with me. Hopefully you'll get the gist of what I'm saying here. And let's start with the Challenge 25, Challenge 21 dilemma. Central government could have made Challenge 21 or Challenge 25 the mandatory condition for challenge policies. The fact that they've chosen to just say in the mandatory condition there must be a policy means that it's open in place for the operators to set that policy. And yes, certainly there are different standards to be set. And if there were issues with young people relating to any of Jamie's premises, one would have a stronger argument to say Challenge 25 must be imposed here. We're saying Challenge 21 works across the board and in the market cap, so that's why we're asking for it here. I think it's probably worth saying, as obvious as it is, that one must accept that an operator like Jamie with 17 years in the city, an impeccable track record, should be given his head more than a new operator coming into town who, you know, a bit naive about the city, doesn't know what's going on. This is a crafted application that we've put together to consider how best we can operate, understanding the difficult times. And as Jamie said earlier, you may find, and the police may find, that there are other premises coming to you with existing restaurant conditions saying, look, we need to amend this at the moment, because if we don't, we're going to fall. So it is worth thinking about it in those terms. As a licensing committee, you do have a wider role than the police, and fully accept that their focus is crime and disorder, mainly crime and disorder, other licensing objectives, but your remit is much wider, and the guidance makes that point very clearly. Times are changing, and they are changing rapidly, and that's why you changed your policy in 2022 to reduce the red zones and indeed add the addition of amber zones. Now, I tried to find the old policy to remind myself of how big the old red zone was, as it were, to see which other premises were caught within it. I couldn't locate it, but as sure as eggs is eggs, some of these premises that are run by Jamie would fit within what would have been the old vetoed red zone. In fact, Public Vaults, I seem to remember at the time, was in an area with an absolute prohibition, and indeed was granted because, again, experienced the offer, etc., that was put there. And this is not much different to that offer. As Kim says, I mean, you know, from Kim's point of view, these are minor changes. But from our point of view, if they were minor changes, we would have agreed to them. You know, that's the reality of it. We're not here just to pick a bit of a fight with Kim. We certainly would never do that. We think they're significant changes, and they need to be recognised in the application. Kitchen costs just simply mean there's no point in having staff hanging around when people aren't going to eat, and that's Jamie's experience that will tell you when that is and when that isn't there. We want people to eat, and we don't want kitchen staff. You know, this isn't a Pyrrhic offer of a kitchen. This is a serious offer of a kitchen. But we are still asking for the, and I understand Kim's points about we're taking away more than we had in the original condition. But this reflects how quickly things are changing. We are asking for the condition to be amended as a minimum substantial food, non-intoxicating beverages, including drinking water, to be available in all parts of the premises where alcohol is sold or supplied for consumption on the premises between midday and a minimum last order of time of 9 p.m. or 2100 hours each day, as we have to do 24-hour clock. We think that actually works better. Obviously, it's at your gift as to whether you think that goes too far. We would ask, if you're not prepared to grant that, we go back to the 3 hours at the end of the day, minimum trading, as we offered in the original application. Paragraph 4.4 of your policy makes it clear you want thriving businesses and no empty buildings. Well, this building's been empty for 2.5 years, near enough. Thriving businesses, if you want an example of thriving businesses that don't undermine the licensing objectives, Jamie's talked very eloquently about his. Each application must be determined on its merits, and that's clearing cumulative impact zones. Paragraph 14.44 for your legal advisor at page 115 of the current guidance makes that clear. So we have an exceptional operator with an impeccable track record. We're outside of red and amber zones. We're bringing back an unused building in the heart of the city, 21 jobs, a £700,000 investment. And we say that even with the application as amended, it's still predominantly food-led. The busy times, the majority of the day, still offering food, and it's still got to be substantial. So it's still predominantly food-led. It doesn't mean there's food at all times, but that's what we say here. Every hour in a kitchen at the moment counts. So every hour that it may seem trivial to have it open when nothing's going on and people are twiddling their thumbs is significant cost on a business. You've heard that the costs are going up to over £100,000 estimated for just for having the lights switched on and the kitchen operating. And that is a significant amount of money. So every hour does count here. And if you want evidence, and that's the way one deals with these things, look at his other premises in cumulative impact and how they work. I've given you the Brewdog case and I've given you all the other points. So those are my submissions. I hope I haven't gone over my 5 minutes, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Cuthbertson, have you got any final clarification questions for anybody?
No, I don't think so. I won't get involved in an argument about what the government's statement that there should be a policy or there must be a policy actually means on the ground, but there's an interesting interpretation from one side, and I'm sure there's an equal and opposite interpretation from the other, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter. Thank you.
Councillor Galvin, any questions for anybody?
Yes, confused.com, I think, and that's probably because I'm getting a bit long in the tooth. What are the exact hours that the police would like where food, it's being food-led? What are the exact timings? That's number one. And number two is, the applicant. What's the exact hours that the applicant sees that food will be available? And to the police, what hours exactly do you wish to see? Because looking on page 65, and I might well be misreading it, it seems to me that we're talking about an hour. Is that, am I right in that assumption? That we're talking in terms of the applicant wishes to stop serving food, in essence, or last orders for food, let me rephrase that, at 9 o'clock.
Correct.
Whereas the police are saying they would like to see last orders at 10 o'clock. And from 10 to 12, the premises will be open for serving a drink anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is that my understanding of the situation?
I'm sure Piers will come in with his from his point of view, but absolutely from my point of view, the applicant wants sale of alcohol from 0800 hours in the morning until midnight, and I just am asking that up until 2 hours before the last sale of alcohol, so up until 10 p.m, that alcohol, that there is food available. Not that people have to have food, but there is food available. I know the applicant originally wanted 3 hours. And obviously now, as has been submitted today, they also hope to lose the first 4 hours where food would have been available. That's my interpretation.
Yes, Councillor Galvin. I mean, Kim has summarised that very well. When we first made the application, we asked for 3 hours at the end of the day where we didn't have to serve food if there was no appetite for it. So that's the hour compared to the police. We've subsequently asked, and as I've said in this meeting, to amend that so that there's set times. So rather than having a condition that says for the last 3 hours, as it did in the application, what we've suggested is that food must be served with a minimum last orders till 9 o'clock, which makes it clear. Then if they close earlier, still have to have food till 9. But we have asked for food to be started at midday rather than at opening. But again, that's within your gift if you wish to do that, and I've explained the reasons why. So what we're now proposing is a start time, minimum start time of midday, minimum closing time 9 p.m. for food. Last orders.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just off the back of that, I suppose in terms of your operating model with those 3 hours in the morning from 8 o'clock or more than, is it more, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 8 till 12? I mean, what's the reality? You know, if we look to reducing those hours because you said you're not going to have the kitchen open, I mean, are you actually planning on trading at 8 o'clock? Because that doesn't seem to fit in with the kind of business model you're describing.
Oh, sorry, if I can speak here, what we're looking to do is to have a set of parameters whereby I've got the availability to operate and have the stealth of be able to move the model that suits the location and the clientele. If I give a set of rigid hours, I might as well be applying for these in Westminster or in Birmingham or somewhere else. I'm applying for them in York City, which I fully understand. And it's fluid, it changes by the seasons, it changes Christmas, what's going on the street, what's happening on Parliament Street, what Make It York are creating. The whole city is diverse now in its trading periods. To sit and come and give you definitive hours, yeah, I may open at 10 o'clock on a Saturday selling mulled wine in the morning, at which point I don't see the point in having a full kitchen team available serving a full cooked breakfast, which is not what we're offering. It's not our business to do this. But what I'd like to do is just have the ability to make business when it's available. And I don't think having a set of firmly written to the 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after, or 2 hours before, 2 hours after, will allow us to do that. You know, it takes 2 hours to prep in the morning. So there's a kitchen team already in at 10 a.m. ready for 12. So if I need them in if I decide I'm going to want to trade earlier, say 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I need them in at 6 a.m. in the morning. So they'll be there at 6 a.m. in the morning through to something like midnight. It's, you know, that's a lot. It's a lot of staffing to put into a kitchen. So it's just looking at how we can best trade the location. That's exactly why the hours are set like they are. Being quite honest with you, most likely I don't think we'll open the doors until 11 a.m. most days of the week, as I do my other businesses. But it's there, we have got the ability to do it rather than regretting not doing something now and having this discussion.
Can I just clarify that point though, Chair, is that if the license is granted by yourselves from 0800 hours, they are allowed to sell alcohol from 0800 hours. So of course, we would always look to try and have some condition in place to ensure that people are not just using a vertical drinking establishment from 8 until dinner time. So that's the point that I would make on that.
I think that the point that Kim makes, obviously, one has to stress test against other premises and other operations, and you know, Jamie is very good at understanding his clientele and operating to those clientele. So we certainly wouldn't expect that kind of crowd that wants to come in early, binge drink for a few hours and then go off around the town or go to football matches, that kind of thing. That's not the crowd that are attracted. And Jamie's track record over 17 years, I think, and my submission is, should be held in quite high regard and given serious weight in making these determinations.
Sandra, I can see you've appeared. Have you got any clarifications or last points for us?
Well, Chair, yes, thank you. I was just wanting, if I may, please, may I clarify with the parties the exact wordings of their respective conditions. As I understand it, the police condition is set out on page 65 of the agenda.
Yeah.
Mr. Warren, is your amended condition set out anywhere in any of the supplementary papers that have been? I've just been looking for it, and I thought I had seen it, but now I'm not sure.
There were some emails that I forwarded on. I don't know if they made the supplemental papers, because I don't think Kim, when she sent hers in, had that last bit of the email chain on it.
I think I did. I'm trying to find the page for you.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
But I believe, in fact, it hasn't got a page number on the end of it, but it's right at the end in my additional material. Sandra, you should be able to find the emails back and forth from myself and Piers. The very last one, I think, that he sent on the 10th of October, 12:36. It details it in there.
So that's the final, that's the wording of the applicant's condition with the timings that Mr. Warren's been referring to, set out. The members can see it. Thank you very much. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any final points before we go into our private deliberations? Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you all for attending. Obviously, what would have happened if it was in person was we would adjourn and then invite you back in once we have a decision, but not quite as easy on Zoom. But I think it's still the case, Fiona, correct me if I'm wrong, that you will be notified of the decision, maybe not in detail, and obviously there'll be the five days. I think they've got to publish the decision in detail, but either way, you will have a decision, hopefully today, which is a yes or a no decision, and more details to follow. So I hope that's acceptable. And just thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.